much, much more. We will also bring you exclusive interviews with the greatest professional wrestling personalities on the local, national, and international levels. If you want to follow the Wrestle Talk Podcast, check us out online at www.wrestletalkpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And now, it's time for the reigning, defending, undisputed leader in pro wrestling podcast, the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to the Wrestle Talk Podcast for the next 2
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of the Wrestle Talk Podcast. This is the one and only Luke Roberts here on the program. Tonight we're going to have a great show. As a matter of fact, here we're trying to get a couple things taken care of. Tonight on the program, we're going to have Cory Bush here on the program in just a little over an hour. And it's going to be a great show from top to bottom. Matter of fact, here in just a second here, you're actually going to get to see my wonderful face here on the program this evening. We'll go ahead here in just a second and get that taken care of. Again, as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, make it a point to let your friends and family know tonight we will be on the program here live from 8 to 10 on the East Coast, 7 to 9 here Central. And as a matter of fact, we got things rolling right here. A matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead in just a moment, and we're going to talk about all of our great sponsors here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. We've got a lot of great sponsorship. We've got, of course, Royal Mills Transportation in the Kansas City area. If you need transportation, make it a point to catch Royal Mill Transportation with our great friend and sponsor, the one, the only, the CEO, Dewan Mills. Also, ladies and gentlemen, check out Nobleman's Barber Lounge in Kansas City. Kincaid at the Oak Park Mall. The great folks over at Interstate 70 Sports Media with the one and only Maestro Jeremy Karp, who's going to be celebrating episode 100 of the Roundabout Sports program will be taking place tomorrow night. And of course, we would be remiss if we left out Little Popeye Designs, some of the great Wrestle Talk Podcast tumblers, and of course the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group. And right now you can see right here on the screen the Wrestle Talk Podcast tumbler available for purchase. All you have to do is make it a point to get that thing here. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. You can see myself, the one and only Luke Roberts here on the program. And of course, tonight we're going to have Cory Bush here on the program at about 8:15. We're going to have the Snippets of Truth. We're going to have a lot of great fun here tonight as we continue on our journey to episode 500. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be joined tonight by a man who feels that he is the future of the Wrestle Talk Podcast. He is the future of the FWWC. And he's just the future of wrestling in general in many people's eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the Warriors Heart champion himself, Gabriel Arsene. Arsene, how are you doing here this evening, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Luke Roberts. Just remember how you lean on it, okay? No. But I appreciate the introduction, ladies and gentlemen. Warriors Heart Championship over my shoulder. Plenty to talk about in the world of the FWWC these past couple of weeks, but also plenty to talk about in the world of professional wrestling. And, it's me and you figureheading it tonight. Just to clarify, we did have a couple of our hosts that were having trouble here tonight. Full transparency. They're working on it right now. These kind of things happen, live shows. We all know what to expect. Card subject to the change, right?
That is very true, Arsene. Very true. And like I said, want to give a shout out to all of our broadcast colleagues. Of course, the Night Owl, Renee Martinez, who will be joining us here again, I do believe, next week on the program. We also have Hardcore Hoss, who's hoping being the key word, that he'll be able to come in just a few short minutes. I know he's been taking care of some things behind the scenes as well. The Maestro Jeremy Karp, for those that don't know in the area, there have been a lot of technical issues out where the Maestro lives, and I'm gonna level with you. He's actually right now in the midst of talking to his wonderful internet provider to make sure things are taken care of there. And like I said, Arsene, we're getting closer. We are getting closer by the minute. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead, and with one more reminder, I'm going to go ahead and throw that graphic up here one more time if I have the opportunity to do so here, as we can see here on the program. And I don't know if we're going to get to see the graphic or not, but that's okay. We can go ahead and we can talk about the show here. Right now, as we can see here, the Apex featuring Cory Bush going to be joining us here in just a little bit. And I got to tell you, I know a lot of people here at the Wrestle Talk Podcast are looking forward to this interview here tonight on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. And before we get too far along, we do have to address here, and I'm going to go ahead and take care of this right now. As many people in the wrestling community know, and I'm going to go ahead and throw up the graphic right here on the program. We would be remiss if we didn't talk this evening about the legacy of the other half of the Wild Samoans, that being the one, the only Afa Anoa'i, passing away. I believe it was this past Friday. And, you know, Arsene, I got to level with you. I mean, it's just the Wild Samoans were probably one of the greatest tag teams in the history of professional wrestling. And I mean, I kind of find it unique that both Afa and Sika, it's kind of like they were I mean, consistently together throughout their lives, and it's just kind of, I don't want to say fitting, because fitting's not really the right word, but it's kind of ironic that both men passed so close together. And again, I want to express on behalf of the Wrestle Talk Podcast and professional wrestling fans across the globe, our condolences and our thoughts and prayers are going out to the Anoa'i family. Again, Sika passing away earlier this year, and now the news this past week that Afa passed away. Arsene, any thoughts that you have about the passing of Afa Anoa'i?
I mean, like you said, I know ironic is sort of it is the choice of words here for the situation. And just it's never an easy pill to swallow when somebody in the world of professional wrestling leaves us. They're never truly gone. We will always remember their legacy. We will always remember the memories and the influences that they had on fans, family alike. And I think when we take the opportunity to honor their history, we make sure that their spirit is not forgotten. And I think, you know, we love wrestling from the bottom of our hearts because it's all scripted, and it can have its moments of being like a show. But moments like these are the ones where we remind ourselves this is real, and we can all take a moment to just, I guess, come together and honor and love somebody who gave their lives to something like this. So
And
I
you
guess
and you look at it
put
too
it
here,
mildly.
Arsene. You look at it too. I mean, again, the WXW Training Center. The Samoans had a huge hand in that. A lot of great wrestlers, not only from the Samoan dynasty and from the Samoan bloodline, but a lot of professional wrestlers. I remember having an opportunity, wrestlers, I believe Dave Bautista, among others, came through there. I believe Dave Bautista, and again, I'd have to double check my facts, but I believe Dave Bautista and I believe Billy Kidman both stand out to me as it relates to graduates. I'm going to look that up, and hopefully we can share that a little bit later on. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to my broadcast colleague here. As we said here, usually on the Wrestle Talk Podcast, we honor those that have passed in the world of professional wrestling with the tolling of the bell 10 times. So at this time, again, we're going to go ahead and, out of respect for the legacy, not only of Afa Anoa'i, but of the Samoans, the Samoan Wild Samoans and the Samoan dynasty. We're going to go ahead at this time, Mr. Arsene, if you would, let's go ahead and toll the bell 10 times out of respect and honor for the late Afa Anoa'i. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, again, thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to pay respect to the late Afa Anoa'i, the Anoa'i family. Again, a great man, great legacy, great tag team, no longer with us. And again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Anoa'i family. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and move on here. Arsene, I got to level with you here. We're getting to a lot of important things here. And I know we're going to talk about high spots. We're going to go through the national anthem here. But you know something? I mean, again, I know at some point tonight we're going to be talking All In. We're going to be talking Wembley Stadium. We're going to be talking about the matchup that everybody's been talking about, Swerve Strickland taking on Bryan Danielson. We're going to talk about a lot of things, WWE, ROH, you name it, from top to bottom. It's going to be a great night of pro wrestling talk. But before we get started, I think this is going to be a first here on the Wrestle Talk podcast this evening. And that is tonight, Mr. Arsene, Mr. Warriors Heart Champion, Mr. Young Lion, as you like to call yourself. What's the phrase? Young Lion with the old soul? Is that the name?
That's the moniker, yes. I take pride in that. I came up with that myself.
And like I said, as we can see here right now, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take care of things here right now. And I'm going to go ahead and I am going to throw this out here to make sure that the introduction is done correctly. And again, just to make sure he's getting the guidance, I'm going to go ahead and throw things over to my broadcast colleague to set it up just like we do each and every week. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the technology is working according to plan. But I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you, Mr. Arsene, for the introduction to pay homage to the United States. So, Mr. Arsene, if you would, go ahead and let's get this show rolling tonight.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Skywalker. As always, the Wrestle Talk Podcast, we are I guess the word plucky bunch of individuals. So, of course, we love to exercise our freedom of speech. And we would not be able to do so if it weren't for us being able to live in the greatest country on God's green earth. And that is America, damn it. I think the bleeding finally stopped. As always, on the Wrestle Talk Podcast, it brings a tear to your eye and blood to your ears. Roseanne Barr,
you know something? You know, Arsene, I got to tell you right now, with everything going on the way that it is, and I mean, again, I want to give a shout out to, as we always try to do as well, give a shout out to our first responders, our armed forces, our men and women who are serving to protect our country each and every day. Those that are EMTs, firefighters, policemen and women, you name it, all those individuals without whom the Wrestle Talk Podcast would not be able to do what we do each and every week. And as we said before, if we're looking at things right now, we are getting extremely close. And I know we talk about it each and every week. I know we do. Every time we talk about the idea that we're getting closer and closer. And I'm going to tell you right now, the week of September 14th is going to be the landmark. We've got more and more people. I'm going to level with you. I'm going to kind of pull the curtain back a little here tonight and talk about the fact the people who have already sent congratulations We've already started talking about the Wrestle Talk Podcast in episode 500. I mean, again, it's starting to catch buzz all across the country, and we're going to have some information about that coming up. So now we've gotten all that taken care of. I know we're going to be joined by the one, the only Hardcore Hoss. We're going to be joined by Big Daddy P here in just a little bit as well. But before we get too much farther along, I think we're about that time that we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure, like I said, Arsene, I think if you can go ahead and cue us up some music so we can get into the high spot segment of this week's installment of the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Let's go ahead and see if the computer will let us hit it tonight.
Mic check, mic check. Yeah. All right. Wrestle Talk Podcast. DJ Money. Yeah. Let's go. Welcome to High Spots, where we pop news like clear chops. We talk shop, coming through the screens of a laptop and non-stop like a runner speakers of blacktop. We hit hard like chair shots and backdrops, like a clock flash, look like a barely flop. Now that's hard. We up to speed while they stay slow. Wrestle Talk Podcast. Now they know we about to start the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the high spot segment.
Mic check.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen, the high spot segment. And again, as you can see here on the screen, I know it's on my screen. I can't see on screen right now. Jimmy Harris summarizing how things are rolling here. Yeah. Technology not cooperating the way we wanted to tonight, but you know what? That's all right, because we're going to keep plugging along.
It's us too.
Like I said, we'll get things rolling eventually here tonight. But like I said, right now as it stands here, we've got a lot of great questions here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast high spot segment here. And Hardcore Hoss, thanks, Hoss. I see how it is. We get everything taken care of. Even members of the Wrestle Talk Podcast family are giving us a hard time here tonight, but you know, that's all right. This is not only a fun time talking about pro wrestling, but it's also a learning experience, and that's what's there. But you know something, ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to hear us talk just in general. You want to hear us talk about the high spot segment. So Arsene, if you would be so kind, let's go ahead and hit that randomizer. I think we have it taken care of. Hopefully it's taken care of. Let's go ahead and hit the randomizer and get our first high spots question out here this evening. All right, Arsene, are you there? Ladies and gentlemen, I guess the technology, the bugs are going to continue here.
There we go.
Arsene. All right, we're back now. Arsene, I don't know what it is. I guess it's just because we had that pre-show pep talk right before we went live. We made sure everything was set, it was ready to go, and then I don't know what it is. But now that you're back, we're back. I think it's time. Let's try this again. The randomizer should be working now. Let's go ahead, hit the randomizer, and let's get this rolling here this evening. All right, we're going to go ahead and throw the first high spots question up here in just a moment. And woo, what a question to set it up. Brian Danielson has said that win or lose, AEW's All In feels like the biggest moment of his career. Do you agree? I got to say right now, this is a... I'm going to tell you, Arsene, this is... Yeah, this is... Can we postpone this to later? And I don't even know if later I'd be ready to answer this, because this is a pretty tough question here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of lead off. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to say, because to me, I mean, you got a lot of great things with him. I mean, You've got his time in ROH. You've got his time, the March to WrestleMania 30. You've got, and I'm going to put it out there, his feud that he had with The Miz. And now you're looking at the idea of him wrestling a matchup against Swerve Strickland. And we've heard the stories. We've heard what's going on. Supposedly, his contract has already expired. He doesn't have to come back. He doesn't have to get in the ring. He's not contractually obligated outside of winning the Owen Hart tournament. But another thing to look at is the idea, we've heard the stories about the neck issues. He's openly said, I know a lot of media people have said, he's looking at neck surgery, and he's looking at it sooner rather than later. As a wrestler who has neck issues, and again, I'm totally going to let the fans know, 36 plus years in the wrestling industry. Between that and family heredity, I've got 2 discs in my neck, C4, C5, C5, C6, that they've told me somewhere down the road from all of the athletics I've done, from all the interaction with the world of professional wrestling, I'm probably going to be looking at the idea of seeing that fusion surgery. I know what that's going to entail. I've heard many stories about that surgery. But the point remains, is this Bryan Danielson's biggest match? I don't think so. To me, I think his biggest platform was Mania 30. He's been giving a lot of wrestlers the opportunity to move on to the next generation. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that this is his biggest. It's going to be one of, but I don't think this is the biggest moment of his career. Arsene, your thoughts? I know you're a huge Danielson fan. You followed his career for a good long while. I really like to hear your thoughts. I mean, a lot of people say I'm the old school, you're the new school. Let's get your point of view here. I think you've got an interesting take on this.
Well, I mean, to start, I want to add to what you're saying is that it's, does this have it? I guess to answer the question in short before I go into this rant is this the biggest moment of his career? No. Does it have the potential to be? Yes. And I think if anybody is going to make a swan song feel as important as it needs to be, especially in the face of, reoccurring injury after reoccurring injury, it's Danielson. Because I can't help but think of, like, not even just the moments you mentioned, Luke, but off of the top of my head, his heel run in WWE when he did the No movement, team with Hell No, his heel run as the eco-friendly with the recycled belt. Some of the best matches I could ever think of. And then not even to sell it short, because AEW's been here for a while, his AEW run. I mean, I think about all the dream matches he's had in just the past 5 years and how every single one has felt important and felt like this big mythic proportion level event that wrestling is supposed to feel. I mean, I still get chills watching the Okada match, and this dude fiending a seizure is a special level of wrestling that I'm like, oh my God, only Bryan Danielson understands it. And then I feel like if they leave this match to have the opportunity for fans to get it in their head that they're like, bro, Swerve's going to kill Danielson. And they're like, yo, it's Danielson's final match. They gave Sting his championship when he left, before he retired. Are they going to do the same thing with Danielson? Does he have something to prove by doing this? And just how close are we getting to the wrestler with Mickey Rourke? Because I feel like if they can really capture that little small germ of something, it can grow into something amazing. And I want to be, the devil's advocate for this and that. Like I said at the beginning of my answer, does this have the potential to, or is this the biggest moment of his career as it stands? No. Do I want it to be? And do I see it becoming it with the right chemicals mixed just perfectly? Yes. But that's just me.
Well, Arsene, I want to throw something here, and I didn't expect that you would throw that avenue out there. We both talked about the idea of how it has the potential. It's going to be one of the biggest matches of his career. And if we see right here, if he wins or loses, will he come back to WWE as Daniel Bryan? And will there be a Yes Movement reunion? I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think so. I'm going to level with you right now. And again, we're seeing a lot of things in the chat here. Again, JSO and Dallas Stevens, the Junkies for Fame, they have a matchup this weekend. They're defending their brand new, newly won CHWA Tag Team Championships. And again, looking at it here, though, I don't see this being there. But when you bring up the wrestler, I'm going to say that this concerns me a little bit. And I don't mean it as a disrespect or a knock to Bryan Danielson. He's accomplished far more than I would say any 10 wrestlers have ever accomplished in their careers. But what happens, and again, I just throw this out here, I got to play the other side of the coin. If Danielson does what he says he's going to do, and he wins that AEW championship, 2 questions. 1, how far does he go? And number 2, as he goes on and on and on, every match he steps on that mat, in that ring, he's on borrowed time. I mean, to me right now, I'm concerned. I mean, again, we all know that wrestling isn't ballet. Pro wrestling is a combat sport. It is a contact sport. People get injured. They get hurt. I mean, I sit back and look at some of my Hall of Fame brethren that are going to be joining me in the 2025 Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. I know the injuries of the likes of an Ed Smith with knee surgeries, with Jeremy Lightfoot. I remember being around when Douglas O'Shea, the Irish Devil, broke his neck. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg on those. Human Wrecking Ball, Pete Madden, Mischief, among others. But the question is the risk worth the reward? And to me, I think right now, are we going to see the best that we can out of Bryan Danielson at All In? Yes. But do I see the career continue as him as AEW World Champion? That I don't. I see Swerve Strickland finally making it a point to be successful, and he's going to show the critics that yet again he is the one that will be at the top of the AEW mountain for a long time. And again, Jimmy Harris, thank you for chiming in. Jim spent many years as a referee, and again, back and neck injuries, even for people like referees, things happen. And I mean, again, it's one of those where is the risk worth the reward? Arsene, I just got to throw it out there. I mean, again, while we're on the topic, do you think Danielson has enough left in the tank to defeat Swerve Strickland and win the AEW World Championship?
You know, before I answer, we got somebody that just came in that's waiting in the wings. And I can tell they're foaming at the mouth to really sink their teeth into this kind of a question. So if you'll allow me, I'd like to throw this up. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the longest reigning hardcore champion in FWWC history, Hardcore Horace.
Boss, thank you for getting here. The pregame pep talk went completely sideways. I don't know what it is. We have had all sorts of things go on tonight, but one thing we got here, we're talking about AEW, we're talking about Bryan Danielson. Do you think All In is his greatest or the biggest moment in his career?
You know, as a fan, I don't believe it is his biggest moment in his career. Now, I know he probably wants it to be, especially considering this may be, his last big hurrah. So I'm sure he wants it to be, but I don't think it really is. I think he's had bigger matches when he was in WWE, and he's just had bigger and better things in the past. So I don't think it is, but I think he wants it to be. I really do.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw the other half of the coin because you've heard this from Arsene, you've heard it from myself. Do you think Danielson wins the AEW title at All In?
Well, it's kind of like I didn't totally catch everything that was said, but I did hear Arsene say at one point, Sting won the title before he went out, and it has been a theme to let them win the title and go out with it. And they could give him the title, hoping that it will it'll get him to stick around even longer. So it's a very good possibility that he could walk out with the title, but it remains to be seen.
Well, Hoss, I've got to throw this at you, and Arsene, please feel free to chime in. I mean, yeah, a lot of people have been critical of AEW's Tony Khan, but surely Tony Khan is not going to put or allow Daniel Bryan to put him, or Bryan Danielson. I'm getting names on the brain here tonight. They're not going to let Bryan Danielson put not only his livelihood, but literally his future on the line. Because, I mean, again, you're looking, and they've said he is looking at major neck surgery. It's not even a could be, would be, should be. They're talking major neck surgery. Do you see Tony Khan letting Bryan Danielson go that far? I mean, I don't know of anybody that they'd be thankful if he manages to make it through All In. Do you see that being an incentive for him to possibly continue on? He openly said that when his daughter turned 7, he was it. That was it. He was done from full-time competition. Do you think that's enough? Arsene, your thoughts?
The thing is that I can't help but feel that, yes, would it make sense, and would AEW give him the opportunity to? Yes. But is Bryan Danielson the kind of person who would take it? I always think about how he's very much a guy who likes to give back to wrestling. And I think better than anybody, Danielson's the kind of guy where not only is he going to give back, he's going to give back to Swerve in the biggest way, where he's like, nobody else is going to say anything else about your career because you are the man who ended the American Dragon. So, I mean, that's mostly what I think about that.
All right. Well, Hoss, your thoughts. I mean, again, I know you and I have had many a conversation about AEW. What are your feelings?
I tend to agree with Gabe on that. I'm just not really sure on this one, to be honest, for the most part, though.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one way we're going to know for certain is make it a point to check out AEW's All In live from Wembley Stadium. Again, it's going to be a great event. I know that they just announced it's going to be a triple threat match for the AEW Tag Team Championship between Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, the Young Bucks, taking on, I believe, it was FTR and the Acclaimed in a triple threat match. Countless other ones. I know that the Scapegoat, Jack Perry, is preparing to defend his AEW TNT Championship against, I believe it's Darby Allin. We're also looking at the idea of Mercedes Moné taking on Britt Baker. There's a lot of different things that are going on with All In, and we're going to talk about that a little more. But Hardcore Hoss, I got to tell you, maybe now that you're back, even though we had the pregame pep talk, we had everything down, I think everything's back to the way it needs to be. Can you go ahead and let's get this randomizer taken care of? Let's get another question up here tonight so that we can talk more about professional wrestling here on the High Spot segment.
You're muted, bud.
I think I know where this one is going, and I have to say, but this question right here is kind of a unique question. Your Pat McAfee said that last night's Raw will be his last one for a while. Will this help or hurt the WWE going forward? Gentlemen, I've got my own take on this, my own thoughts. Before I share them, I want to throw it to one of the two of you, because I think this one is, from all three of our perspectives, is going to be a different point of view. So, Hoss, we'll go ahead and let you get started here on this first one about Pat McAfee.
You're muted.
Okay, let's try now. There are a lot of people who like Pat. So from that aspect, it is going to hurt, because a lot of people aren't going to be happy that he's leaving. But it also depends on exactly who they're going to replace him with. Because, I've heard that Cole will be going back to SmackDown, and I've heard a few names thrown around that are joining commentary teams. And, so from now until January, because I believe he's supposed to be back when they switch to Netflix, I believe is what they said last night. So we'll have to see exactly who he's replaced with. But honestly, I don't think a lot of people are going to be happy when they have to replace Pat. I mean, I know last night was the last show he's going to do, but with whoever they replace him with, I don't think a lot of people are going to be happy with that. So it may be a downside.
Very valid point, Hoss. Very valid point. Arsene, your thoughts? And again, before we get your thoughts, can you go ahead and bring up that comment that we had just a minute ago, Hoss? I believe it was Jackson had that brought up here. We have to go, OMG, we can wait 4 months. I don't think that Jackson's commentary really agrees with Hardcore Hoss. Maybe Arsene's commentary will agree with Jackson here. Arsene, your thoughts, Pat McAfee taking his break from the world of the WWE to go back to talking college football?
Full disclosure, I personally, professionally speaking, he should be allowed to do whatever he wants. Like, I don't think he should be tied down to wrestling, especially as a fan. I don't think we should be greedy and just be like, nobody cares about you doing college football. Stay and commentate Raw every day. So I think he should be allowed to, but I do think he will be missed, myself included. I think, Pat McAfee is probably one of the better commentators we've had in a very long while. Very quotable. I think he's hilarious. And I think it hurts them only because while most people don't know a lot about WWE, they probably know about Pat McAfee. So he was bringing in at least enough of a demographic because people probably saw clips about him around the place. So I definitely think it hurts them in terms of the exposure that they might be getting. The good news is he will be coming back. So, especially when they get through to Netflix, this will keep people, watching their product and be like, hey. And I think as wrestling goes, it's going to be great because it lets him take a break and lets people forget about him for a little bit. And then suddenly the music hits and everybody loses their mind. So we all like a good pop, especially for somebody like him returning. So it hurts them right now, but it helps them in the future. So I guess it's yes to both. And honestly, I'm just excited. Like, I just can't wait for that. It just reminds me that we have to get to Netflix already. And I kind of agree with Jackson only in the fact that I'm like, it really is just going to be 4 months. Like, it'll go by like that, guys. We'll be talking about this by the next show.
Well, that could be true. I mean, my thought is this, and I just kind of look at it. I kind of want to piggyback off of you, Arsene. Is the idea that if Cole heads back to SmackDown, just as an example, who says that this isn't going to give Corey Graves an opportunity, who's already one of the best announcers they've got, to step up? I mean, it gives you an opportunity of maybe we see a Byron Saxton come back. Maybe we see, who knows, maybe we see somebody like a Booker T come up and be a part of that. I mean, again, looking at it from a perspective, if you had Michael Cole and Pat McAfee on a program, if you have one or the other, I don't foresee it being a huge problem, because if you have Pat McAfee on a show and we don't have a Michael Cole, you've got a Corey Graves who could slide right in. And imagine that combination, regardless of what you're thinking. Corey Graves and Pat McAfee. Just the two of them.
I have 3 words for that.
Very, very impressive.
I think that would be very true. Now, by the same token, too, you don't, it sounds strange, but you don't really change the dynamic with Michael Cole if you put a Booker T in there. You don't really change the dynamic if you put a Corey Graves, because Michael Cole is that good. I mean, to me, I kind of agree with our scene, but the only thing is they have to be very careful as to who are they going to put in, because, again, are we going to have somebody who's going to be on both broadcasts? I mean, the other thing I look at, and I'm just going to put it simple, with him being gone for 4 months, could we see another Pat McAfee in the Royal Rumble? That kind of seemed to have been a trend lately, too. If he comes back and he happens to get in the ring and it leads to him wrestling again at WrestleMania.
Well,
I mean,
one name. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem, Mars. I was pretty much done.
But one name that's being thrown around is Joe Tessitore. That he's going to be joining commentary.
I'm going to actually level with you. Yeah, I'm going to level with you. I'm indecisive. And the reason why, to be perfectly honest, I feel very confident in my abilities behind a microphone in the world of professional wrestling. I don't think there's enough to really be, as I say, inconclusive, I guess would be the best way to put it. Because I just don't know how that's all going to fit into the WWE scheme of things.
Yeah, well, like I say, that's just one name that's being thrown around. And like I say, I believe they said last night that Michael Cole is going back to SmackDown, which, I think they're doing that to try to help SmackDown with it moving over to USA. So I don't know what's going to become of the actual broadcast team for Monday Night Raw. It's definitely going to be interesting.
It's pretty up in the air.
That is true. That is true. Well, like I said, right now we're going to have Cory Bush here on the program. Ooh, we're not going to go to the next question. I like this question. I like this thought. Big E should go to commentary.
Yeah. See,
and Susie throwing in there.
As soon as he said it, like it popped into my head, I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I would love that, actually. It's like, and I think the fact that we're all in agreement on that. I mean, are you in agreement, Haas? I don't know.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think Big E would be great on commentary. He's a very funny guy, and he is very knowledgeable. Obviously, I mean, with as long as he's been in the ring and everything, and I know he still helps backstage and stuff right now, because if you watched that one program they had. What is it, Next Up or whatever? I can't remember what it is. But anyway, he was there helping with the recruits and stuff. So I know he still is doing a lot of stuff with WWE. You see him on pay-per-views and stuff on the pre-show. So I think he would be great as a commentator. I'd love to see it.
Well, gentlemen, I want to pose the other half of the question, though, and we've been seeing a lot of this lately, too, is the idea of, does that kind of encroach a little bit on the current situation between the New Day and the Final Testament?
Possibly. I mean, I guess it just I guess it depends on if they plan on doing something with it. Storyline wise, that has potential. Maybe Odyssey could talk smack about the fact that he's on commentary. I mean, I would like to see something come out of it, but the fact that you acknowledge that means you're paying better attention than some people in the audience, I think.
Well, you know something too, guys, and then now, Haas, I know officially we've completely thrown the format, and this is weird because this is Luke Roberts, a man who loves this format. I'm throwing the format completely out the window right now. I'm going to go ahead and throw it this way. The comment was made, I believe it was last night, Odyssey Jones as the replacement for Big E. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. I know the original question was Pat McAfee, and now we've gone from Pat McAfee to the New Day, Big E, and Odyssey Jones. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Is Odyssey Jones a replacement for Big E as the third member of the New Day? Or is Odyssey Jones the beginning of the end for the New Day? Pause your thoughts.
I honestly don't believe he is the replacement. I said last week, and I'm sure Gabe will remember this, and I would love to see it. Now, like I said last week, yes, I come up with this stuff, and half the time I'm wrong, but, it's just my brain working as what would happen if they would swerve us with something. And my swerve was that Odyssey is a plant by the testament. He's going to turn on New Day themselves. And I would love to see that. That would just be an interesting storyline. But I don't believe he is the end, but I don't believe he is the replacement of New Day, of Big E. I don't think anybody can replace him.
Well, I'm going to throw this one out here, and I know that Arsene is probably completely out there because he can tell my wheels are turning. If he is a plant, then let's counter proposal here. Do we potentially see down the road? And again, this might be some wishful thinking. Would we hope for one day Odyssey Jones versus Big E? Arsene, your thoughts?
If he's allowed to, didn't we just get off of a question about Bryan Danielson and neck fusion surgery and stuff like that? I know Edge is back. I know there's plenty of examples of people coming back from injury, and admittedly, WWE is very safe about that, and I feel like they know how to be able to, book a match safely enough so Big E doesn't low torque on the body and stuff like that. But I'm also well, if they can get away with it safely enough, sure. But I guess I'm not too eager, only because I don't want him to re-injure himself again. But maybe that's just me being a little too cautious.
Well, Arsene, again, when you sit here and you look at it, again, we talked about that. We're trying to be optimistic on things here. But right now, as we look here, and I took the time to do my research here as well. Right now, looking at some of the issues, they said right now, when Big E did break his neck, he had fractures of the C1 and the C6. Now, for those that aren't medical doctors, the C6 is a cervical vertebrae. It is a very dangerous procedure, but it's almost like nowadays a lot of wrestlers are having those lower cervical vertebrae fused. But a C1, that's at the top of your spinal column. And we don't know the Danielson story, but I think it's just wishful thinking of the idea of Odyssey Jones taking on Big E. By the same token, anybody seeing Big E getting back into a ring. But again, that's one of the things that makes Wrestle Talk Podcast so interesting, because we can kind of have that fantasy booking mentality. We start with Pat McAfee and being gone for 4 months, and we wind up talking Odyssey Jones and Big E and the New Day and the Final Testament. And again, we just went all over the place here, but that's what makes the Wrestle Talk Podcast so unique. Now, guys, real quick before we move on, I think we're going to have time for one more question, and I'm hoping that I can get this to work here. We talked earlier on about DJ Money, our good friend. Some know him as Titan. I want to go ahead here real quick, and I'm hoping my technology will work. When I talked to him, he just recently opened his own business in the great state of Georgia. I just want to let you know, if you have any interest in picking up some of the products here, shopbryanthill.com. I just wanted to make sure you give a shout out there. DJ Money has done so much for the Wrestle Talk podcast, helping us get to episode 500, providing us some great original content. And just want to make sure, again, if you want to support a great charity fighting for autism, if you want to support a great business that really, from my understanding, has been taking off as of late, shopbryanthill.com. Again, want to give a shout out to one of our great members of the Wrestle Talk podcast family for as he continues on his journey. Hardcore Hoss, I think we've got time for one more question. I know Big Daddy P is going to be joining us here in a few, and I'm going to level with the viewership. I'm going to get ready because Arsene has promised me that he's going to make up for his last opportunity as a part of the game show challenge. He wants to redeem himself this week. So I want to make sure that we give him an opportunity to have some knowledge. So real quick here before we have Big Daddy P join us, let's go ahead and throw one more Snippets of Truth question up here tonight as a part of the High Spot segment.
And real quick, though, before we move on, I see that Aaron Wallace had put up here, I didn't want him to think that I was ignoring him. He had asked if it was Level Up. No, it was not Level Up. I took a minute to answer that just because I wanted to get the actual thing. It was actually called WWE Next Gen. Was a documentary about the up-and-coming people that they did, and Big E was on there helping with the recruits. So
that is true, and I have to correct myself earlier on. It's not a Snippets of Truth question. Let's get one more High Spots question out here. And thank you, Jackson. Somebody else who believes if you say his name and he'll appear, but we're not going to put his music out there because we don't want to get in trouble for copyright. So let's go ahead and move on to our last High Spots question of the evening.
All right, let's go ahead and get that randomizer going here. Oh boy, I got stuck again, evidently.
Okay, I'm wondering here, guys. We've got the logos of both of two major promotions here in the United States. Let's see what this question entails here. The WWE has announced a live event on the same day and in the same city as AEW's World's End. Who benefits from this and why? Now, gentlemen, I'm going to tell you, there's a few things here that make this a very interesting question. The first thing, which we didn't put here in the graphic, but is going to make a big deal, is the fact that if I'm not mistaken, that this event for the WWE, the live event, and World's End will both be taking place in Orlando. That's the first thing that we don't necessarily have here with the question. The second thing is going to be, it's going to be between the Christmas and New Year's holiday, which is another thing that's not in this question, but could impact the question. I'm going to go ahead, Arsene, because you are our resident Floridian. You know how things go in the Southeast. I want your thoughts here. WWE, AEW, events both on the same day, same city. What are your thoughts?
See, this is hard to answer because I really like AEW. I know that we've had a lot of issues. I know that we're currently wondering what's happening in some aspects of the company. And I know we've had some speculation in the past as far as a rumored photo of somebody we've seen Tony Khan with. But I think the person who benefits the most here is definitely WWE. The fact that they announced it well after AEW announced their location, this is a power play if I ever saw one. And to me, this is very much like they're putting AEW in check, and their response is what we see going forward. And we're going to see if AEW is in checkmate by the time AEW World's End arrives. And I just, like, I don't want to be blunt when I say this to AEW because I want the best for them and I like them having competition. And it's clear that that WWE is making a move because they consider them competition, but they need to get their shit together. Like, they really need to make sure they're buckling down and getting all these storylines airtight and watchable and fun to be like, you know what? People are coming to World's End. Yeah, they got you in check right now, but you need to take the move. You need to take the fight to them. And that's the only way you're going to be able to get them out of there. I can only do my part so much, especially with you guys trying to help me out to get over there. But with that, I think WWE is the people who benefit the most from this. To throw it to the next person, though, Haas, what do you think?
Honestly, I don't think there is anyone who benefits from this. And the reason I say that is because under a normal circumstance, I would always say the more wrestling that's out there, the better it is for the fans. But when you book it on the exact same date in the exact same city, you're almost drawing a line in the sand as to, okay, make your pick. Do you prefer WWE or do you prefer AEW? Make your pick. Which one do you want to watch? Now, yeah, there are going to be fans that are going to go to one show or the other, and then they're going to go back and they're going to catch a replay of the show they didn't go see or the show they didn't watch live. So, yes, the fans are going to see it all, and ultimately that they will benefit from that. But like I say, it's almost making them choose, almost like a line in the sand. And I don't think anybody benefits from that. I really don't. You're going to have people who are going to get hard feelings over it. It could even possibly make some fans, especially fans of AEW, who, all right, yeah, when AEW's not on, I'll watch WWE, could make them say, well, you know, you want to pull something like that, I'm not even watching your program anymore. So not that that's going to be a huge deal, because with all the fans and viewership WWE already has, you know, what's the few that AEW have as loyal followers? You know, what's that really gonna do if WWE loses those, you know? So, but overall, I don't think anybody truly wins out of this. I think it's a screw you thing, and it's just nobody wins.
Well, you know, Haas, I'm going to look at this a little bit differently. And I'm going to kind of, and this is going to sound bad, maybe it's because I'm trying to be neutral in this, but I look at it this way. Could it be a line in the sand? Yes. Could it be an opportunity for Tony Khan to pull some big, monumental rabbit out of the hat, so to speak, and maybe have somebody with a huge amount of name value to appear at World's End? But, you know, I look at this something different. I look at it from the perspective, and I've seen a lot of people. I think this is going to give you an opportunity to allow, for fans that want to watch WWE, I think there's a pretty decisive line for the most part. Those that are going to watch WWE, and hey, Tyler Cooley, the MC of the 25, Independent St. Louis Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, June 22nd. Had to get my shout out there. But I think it's going to be one of those where the WWE and AEW are going to draw their own fan base. I don't foresee that being a huge issue. I think it's going to be a huge benefit to the fans. But Hoss, you brought something else up, which really kind of registered with me. And that's this. AEW. They're doing a pay-per-view. WWE, it's live. The question is, you're not going to necessarily be able to come back and watch on the network. But if you spend $20, $25, $30, maybe a little more for a ticket to the WWE, are you going to be willing to spend $40, $45, $50 to pay for a pay-per-view replay? Are you going to spend the money to get a Bleacher Report broadcast of World's End? It's an interesting question. But one thing I will tell you is this much. This is definitely going to show going forward. We had a question, I think it was last week on iSpots. Where do we see the world of professional wrestling going forward? This is going to be one of those situations here where we're going to see what's here. And also, Jackson, I want to clarify, Bobby Lashley does not have a 90-day contract, no compete. Bobby Lashley could go today. We could see him on Dynamite tomorrow because his 90-day, there is no 90-day no compete with Bobby Lashley. From my understanding, he is free and clear if anybody would want to pick him up. But like I said, gentlemen, real quick here before we move on, I want to go ahead, and now that we've got Hardcore Hoss here, I think we've got everything taken care of. Hopefully we haven't messed up the database too much. Can you go ahead, before we go on to our next couple segments here, can you go ahead and throw up our sponsor list? I think I covered everybody last hour, but I want to do this the right way. I want to make sure it's done the proper way so we can get this taken care of and done to make sure all of our great sponsors are recognized here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. As we continue on the road, WWE is the road to WrestleMania. We have our road to episode 500. So let's go ahead and thank our great sponsors before we move on here. And we're going to go ahead and
paid for by the following.
Thank you, Lord Alfred Hayes.
Paid for by the following.
It was so nice.
Paid for by the following. Promotional consideration.
All right. Royal Mills Transportation with the CEO, DeJuan Mills. If you need transportation in the KC area, make it a point to check out Royal Mills Transportation. Nobleman's Barber Lounge, Kansas City. Kincaid Arcade at the Oak Park Mall. Interstate 70 Sports Media. Home of Roundabout Sports and the Maestro Jeremy Carp celebrating episode 100 tomorrow night. Little Popeye Designs, some of those great Wrestle Talk podcast tumblers. And, of course, the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group, which you can catch on Thursday evenings on all of your great social media outlets. Now, gentlemen, as I said earlier on in the program, our scene had to throw a Night Owl-esque. Actually, no, I'm not going to say Night Owl-esque. I'm going to say he neared Sonny Money of a fit when he lost the Game Show Challenge. So tell you what, I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to tag out. But I will be back later in our scene. You better be up for the challenge. You told me you were going to be ready. But I know one thing you are ready for. And Hardcore Hoss, if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and tag out. And we're going to bring on the man who brings us the truth each and every week here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, it's our honor and privilege to bring on the program for the snippets of truth, the one, the only, Big Daddy P. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy P, we're on the road to 500, and I'm going to level with you here. I'm going to be listening for the snippets of truth here tonight, but I'm going to level with you right now. I got to make sure that our scene's taken care of here tonight in the Game Show Challenge. So, Hardcore Hoss, I will see you and our scene, and Big Daddy P, I'm going to be listening in here for the snippets of truth. I will be back momentarily right here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Big Daddy P, throw it to you. How you been, my friend?
I'm vertical, baby. I just got done with the Civil Debate podcast. That was always fun. Hour, 43 minutes of nothing but nonstop talking about the government and the elections and voter ID and immigrants and all kinds of stuff. So I'm pretty excited. But I want to mention my background, which is very important. That no matter what we're dealing with, love is always the answer. It is always the answer. Even if we disagree, it should be done civilly and it should be done in love. Gentlemen, I just want to also comment on the last High Spots question. The wrestling business is going to benefit from these pay-per-views. Remember, they're both in business to make money. They're both in business to spread professional wrestling. It's not a coincidence that it's called AEW's World End, because I believe it could be. If I had a foil hat on, I would say that it is AEW's World End. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'd like to see a takeover. Again, it couldn't happen. Sure. Will it happen? Probably not. It would be too much to handle. You know,
maybe this is where Shane McMahon takes over.
Who knows? Again, but the thing is, see, knowing WWE, because we saw the technique with WCW, they're not going to do the same thing again. I can't imagine it. And now the reports out that Vince is sick and he's got really bad health problems. Again, it's just one of those things where you have to look at professional wrestling and keep in mind what's a work and what's a shoot. And those lines, even mentioning the New Day and bringing in, and everyone saying it replaces Big E. Let me tell you, Big E is still there. He just ain't working. He's just not wrestling, but he is still there. And I'm just thankful again that we have wrestling. I just want to take this moment to thank you guys as we prepare for the big show 500. I'm pretty sure that with everything going on in our world right now, we need good professional wrestling shows. And I'm thankful that we have those, including AEW, TNA Impact, and all the other wrestling promotions that are out there. We do. It's a wonderful time right now. We have a great time in this history to really recognize the things that are worth recognizing and not focusing on all the things that divide us. And there's my truth. It's really simple today. It's a very simple truth that in the end, we have to love one another. We have to live under the same country. And, it's hard because there's so many distractions. There's so many things going on in the world that we want to take our eyes off the most important things, like our family and our friends and the good things that is in this world, and not necessarily just the bad things. Because in the end, if you know the end of the story, you ain't worried about all the stuff that's going on. And I think that's the greatest part, is we have hope because we know the end of the story. So because we know the end of the story, it's like if I could tell you who's going to win WrestleMania before it's even here, right? We don't know. We have no idea who's going to win at World Ends and who's going to lose at World's End, or what belt is going to get changed over, or who's going to get injured, or who's not going to be able to make money because they don't work for AEW. And if they're injured and they might not get paid, AEW, they get paid either way. Many people are sitting at home getting paid. So the business in a whole is benefiting, and these people are being taken care of. And again, I love the fact that we can spend a few moments to stop and smell the roses. I think if I were to summarize 500 shows, I would say that this portion of the Wrestle Talk podcast is a let's smell the roses segment. Let's just stop and just Take it in. Oh, wait. Sorry. That was gimmick infringement. I'm sorry, Chris. I don't mean to. But how you doing? All right.
Doing good there, Big Daddy P. Always a pleasure to get to be here with you tonight. And, unfortunately, I was a little late to the show tonight because I had to set it up earlier today, and then I actually had a viewing to go to this afternoon, and so I didn't get back until where I could jump on about 8:30 my time, 7:30 Central Time. So, I did miss a part of the show for that, but just happy that I can be here with the Wrestle Talk family and happy to be here with you today. And it's always a pleasure.
Well, I know one thing's for sure, and that is that with Show 500 coming up, there's an opportunity to show the Wrestle Talk podcast all kinds of love. Because, again, we could be doing anything right now, right? Matter of fact, I've got DVR'd the San Francisco and New Orleans Saint game on. AEW's being DVR. There's so much to watch, but look at this. We have a prayer request for his dog Bear. Oh no! How long have you had him? I know he can comment and we can get the answer to that. That's tough. Weep with those who are weeping, man. There's a lot of if he's man's best friend, this is going to hurt. So without a doubt, brother, we will pray that if it is his time, we don't want 13 years. Yeah, we don't want. He's had a good life, man. So if it's his time to go, then we just pray that you get a new puppy, or you get to go to the next chapter. And I'm sorry that you're experiencing that. I've lost animals myself, ones that I've actually loved. So I'm sorry you're experiencing that. If you guys are ready, we can pray. Do we have any other requests besides the one? How's Renee? How's everybody doing? How's the show working on 500? Are we stressing out and getting in fights, or are we coming together?
We're doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're holding each other up in this episode, that's for sure. I mean, I'm learning how the boards are working, but, I got Hardcore Haas, I got Luke behind me. They're helping me making sure it goes smoothly. And I mean, it's show business. This stuff happens. Murphy's Law, of course.
And, you talk about episode 500, there's a comment I want to address here. Who is the guest for the 500th episode? Keep your eyes peeled to our Facebook page and all of our social media. We will be having more information coming out on 500 very soon, but for now, it's a secret. We can't tell you.
You'll have to stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what it's all about.
If I can take the opportunity to add to the prayer requests, with the mention of the Night Owl, he's currently, vacationing with his family. I believe he's in Mexico, correct, Hardcore Haas?
He is. Renee is back now. He was going to be here tonight, but he had a back to school night for his kids, so unfortunately he had to go to that.
Well, I was gonna wish him safe travels. So I'm glad to know that it already happened. So you don't got to worry about it. No, but I guess for the sake of it, then for good health. I want to know that we'll all be. I mean, we will obviously, but I like to know that I have the peace of mind and that everybody that is here for the Wrestle Talk podcast family will be able to see us through in episode 500, so we can stay tuned. So I guess just general, just good vibes.
If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Big Daddy for our prayers for the night, and then after that, we'll go ahead and we will get with our featured guest, who's patiently awaiting coming on here, and he's back there eating those green M&Ms as long as Gabe remembered to get them this time. He's not the best about that, but. So, Big Daddy, go ahead and take it away.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your goodness and grace. You've seen the prayer requests that have come before us. We're thankful that we can come before you knowing we don't get a busy signal or a voicemail when we call upon you. You tell us in the days of trouble to turn to you. And so We want to pray for all three of these prayer requests, Father. We know loss is very difficult. We know that just getting older is very challenging, and especially those who have not have a place to rest their head, who are homeless, who are struggling. Father, we thank you that you have continued to bless this nation, to continue to bless this country. Although some would say that in the midst that it could be better, we know it could always be worse. And that's what we're hoping is not the case. So we want to continue to pray that that people would turn to you, Father, that they would humble themselves and come to you with their request, knowing that you will answer only if they would ask. And we're thankful that we can be a part of your plan. I thank you for all the wonderful conversations regarding pro wrestling, and pray for all the promotions out there that are working night in and night out to put together great shows to entertain us. We're thankful that we can have this. And I just want to thank you for the Wrestle Talk podcast, that you continue to make it a beacon of light, because that is such an important topic. There's a time for everything. And I'm thankful that once a week I get to come here to talk about what I love so much, which are three things. One, professional wrestling. Two, my family. And three, you, Lord, because without you, we wouldn't have any of this. So we're thankful for this opportunity. And for those that have not put their faith and trust in you, Father, I pray that they would do it now, that they would stop, that they would not wait any longer, that they would find out that you're the answer. It ain't about religion, but it's about a relationship. It's about recognizing that you are the God of this universe, and that you have a wonderful plan for us, even in the midst of chaos. We just thank you so much, and we love you, and we ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Big Daddy P. As always, it's been a pleasure. And, we will catch up with you again next week. Any closing remarks before we let you go?
God willing, we will be able to get back together again. Love to you guys. Keep planning, keep applying your faith, and keep trusting him, because the Wrestle Talk podcast isn't here by an accident or coincidence, but it is by the hand of God, who knows just what it means to wrestle. We wrestle with him all the time, and the good news is at least we know that in the end we win. We'll see you soon. Love you guys.
Big Daddy P, everybody. All right. Well, Gabe, it's been a heck of a first hour so far. What's your thoughts for the first hour?
Well, for starters, I'm just glad that I'm starting to get a hang for this sort of boards thing. It got me on the spot, but I'm starting to get a feel for it. So hopefully by episode 500, I can make this look a little easier and seamless. But I'm just glad we're getting a lot of rotation here so far. It's been you, me, it's been Big Daddy P, Luke Roberts, and Cory Bush going to be showing up in the next hour. There's a little bit of what I think we need to address before we move on to our next question, though. We had it past it a little bit, but I thought I'd mention this only because it pertains to you, Hardcore Haas. So Jackson over here thinks he can step into the ring with the longest reigning FWWC champion. And, you faced a lot of people in the FWWC. We're always looking for new competitors. If he works his way up in the FED, I know you're running it. Do we see this match potentially in the future, Hardcore Haas?
It could be in the future. Unfortunately, I believe you got to be 16 or something before the powers that be will let you join the FWWC. So Jackson has a couple years before he can get there, but yeah.
Oh, I see.
He's definitely can get a shot at it. So right.
I guess Hassan's giving him giving him the approval. Let him get a couple of birthdays first, and then we'll talk about this again. So sadly, we have to decline your opportunity here, Jackson, but we appreciate the enthusiasm.
All right. Well, we do have our guest, patiently waiting in the back, and, we want to respect his time and everything. So we don't want to keep him waiting any longer. So if you would allow me, would okay with you if I do the introduction here?
I think for the sake of the program and everybody else's time, I think it's better if you do. So if you'll take the lead, Arthur.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we'd like to welcome to the program a man who has been wrestling since around 2005. And, you know, you may have seen him in several different promotions. You know, most recently, I believe he's been in EWA, Elite. He has been at Voltage before, WDWA, EPPW. He trained at the House of Pain. He has held multiple heavyweight titles and tag team titles. And now you may have also seen him on stand-up comedy stages, and now is branching out as a promoter, ladies and gentlemen, starting up Apex Wrestling. So give it up for the one and only, the weight of the world, Cory Bush.
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
How's it going tonight?
I'm loving it, my man. Looking forward to Apex's very first show coming up this Saturday night.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing the product you're going to be putting out, you know. So I guess that would be the place to start. How did you decide to dive into the world of being a promoter and start up Apex Wrestling?
So what happened is over COVID, I just happened to have the most kind of standing at one time cash because nothing was going on. So I didn't have a whole bunch of stuff to put it out. And me and my partner, Tate Griffin, bought a wrestling company, and I kind of sat on it waiting for the right time, and kind of just a perfect storm of things happened. Voltage moved into Maryland, getting a Maryland promoter's license, and WDWA moved kind of out of the center of Martinsburg to do their own thing in their new chapter now. And I was just like, well, now there's nobody kind of in downtown Martinsburg. There's nothing going on there right now. So let me slide in here and see if I can create something. I being partners with Tate and seeing how things run at Elite, or seeing how Mike had gotten Voltage started, or how the storefront at WDWA, like I kind of, in recent years since COVID, got all these different educations on people starting stuff and doing stuff. And I was just like, now's as good a time as any. I'll hit 20 years next May. And I thought it would be cool to have something, a community of my own that I can start to grow and cultivate. And getting into comedy kind of gave me a new perspective on the audience having a good time. And making sure that people leave an experience feeling good. Like when you're in the ring wrestling, like you have to be kind of centered on your box to get it right. And so that's why for this particular show, and at least for the first foreseeable in Apex, like I'm running these shows, I'm producing them, I'm not wrestling on them because I've seen people try to do both jobs and mess them both up. So until I'm sure that as a promoter and the guy running the show, I know what I'm doing and I can get that right, I just kind of decided to hang back and make sure I've got it running right before I step through the ropes and add whatever I have to offer in the ring to the Apex roster.
Well, knowing your history, you know, I am sure that it's most of the stuff that I've seen you do, you know, has been a great success. And I'm sure that this will be no different. So what can people expect out of Apex versus what they get out of other shows, you know, or what are you going to offer different from the other ones?
It's my hope that because Apex isn't initially like attached to a school right off the bat, that every show I'm going to be able to pick from different categories, from different places, and just some of the red tape that I find that certain matchups might have. I've been around long enough that I can ask those guys because I've been in the ring with them or I've shared a locker room with them. and it's not just somebody calling you up to sell some tickets and try to, it's I'm doing it because I've been in the ring with them, or I've been in a car with them, or I've been in a room with them, and I've seen this talent firsthand. And these first couple of shows, I really get to pick from that until I see who's new and up and coming and who can add on to that. But I'm really hoping to take some heavy hitters from around the area and put them in new combinations you may not have seen yet. And we've got a great building in the Berkeley 2000 Center. It's where they run the Tough Man in Martinsburg, so it's a good size. All the concessions go back to the Parks and Rec Center, so just by showing up and eating a hot dog, you're doing something good for the community. Just trying to make it a big, positive party kind of atmosphere. And I think once I get the ball rolling and get the first few shows going and get people on board, you're really going to get to see a lot of creative flair. Because right now I'm working on learning more about production stuff and how to dress everything up in bells and whistles. But this first show was really just hitting the ground, hitting the streets, talking to real life people, and just trying to get them through the door to have an experience they may not have had, because hardcore wrestling fans are going to find what they like. They're going to seek it out. They're going to find it, and they're going to tell you who they like and who they don't and what mixes and matches. And I want all of that. But I also like the idea that a guy that just wants something fun to do with his kids on a random weekend can show up, and if he doesn't know the 5 miles of backstory, they can still have a good time with what's right in front of them.
Yeah, and I've definitely been hearing some buzz about Apex. A lot of it's because there are some names that this area hasn't seen in a period of time that'll be coming back. Such as ISP and Reggie, and some of the others that used to be seen in this area quite frequently, and for one reason or another, we just haven't seen much of them. So I've been hearing some buzz about the fact that you do have people like that coming back, and they're looking forward to seeing them. So, but I don't want to take all the time myself. I've got my co-host up there, Gabe, and he's actually from the Florida area, but he's actually looking to get into the wrestling business himself, wanting to step in the ring. So I definitely want to give some time to him to ask you some questions as well, because I'm sure that he's been checking things out. So Gabe, you got some questions you want to ask?
Fire away.
Questions. Well, I want to start by saying thank you for being on the program tonight, man. I as a part of this podcast, I love knowing that we're able to contribute to, fledgling companies trying to get their foot in the door and build themselves up. And especially because, this is an opportunity to me for not only just to meet like a network opportunity, because, maybe I'm ever in your area, I'd love to get booked, but, but also just an opportunity to kind of give back to wrestling. I'm all about trying to find indie opportunities out here in Florida because I want to contribute to the wrestlers and to the companies and especially the promoters. And so for me, this is kind of a big deal because I'm like, hey, we're helping out Apex Wrestling. So I want to start though, because I wanted to mention you. So you've done comedy before. I have to ask, in your experience, which crowd is harder to handle and why? Because I know as somebody who does shows, I'm a salesperson on my work life. So I've learned my script. I kind of know the timing, and they've taught me a couple of tricks on how to pick up things that, your audience is doing and how to notice things. So I guess I want to wonder, like, I've never done stand up before. I have a couple of jokes I do in my script that fall flat, but is it harder to get a phrase over in wrestling or a move over? Is it harder to get a joke over in front of a crowd while they're drinking?
I think because from a young age, I knew wrestling was always going to be a part of my future. I did things that led me into it. Like I played sports, and I did chorus when I was in school, and any chance to act or any chance to get on a stage, like all of those things put together, when I got to wrestling, the show side of it came easier. Because that beginning training, you could prepare your lungs and try to get enough wind to be ready for it, but you can't really prepare your body for the crashes that you're going to take, especially while you're learning to get your style right. It just hurts, and it just hurts for a while, and your body gets used to it to a certain extent. But as far as the base of your question, I think if you have the personality, turning a phrase is easier than turning a crowd in a wrestling match. But also, there's nothing like comedy. There's no art form that I've done that's like it, because everything else has a box for you to fit in for it to be what it is. If you're doing sports, there's rules to the game. If you're acting, there's a script, or at least you're given a character to work from. If you're doing music, it has to be music to qualify. But for stand-up comedy, any phrase you say could be funny, or any topic you bring up can be funny if you know how to spin it, or if your personality allows for it to connect. So there's small tricks and stuff that you can use, but really it's, can you relate to whoever's in front of you? Because it's one thing to talk with you guys for a few minutes, kind of figure out what your sensibilities are, and then find some way to boomerang something back and make it funny. It's entirely different to say, here's a story or a thought or a couple of lines in my head that were funny before I ever met you or know what you care about. As far as wrestling, they at least are prepared. The crowd is at least prepared to what they are going to see, kind of. Like, you still got to give them some twists and some turns. And, really just the act of taking all those falls or taking all those hits, like, you're giving something to them. So even if it's not the biggest knockdown, drag-out match you ever had, if you're not being lazy out there and you're trying to put on a good show, there's still a good way to come out of it with a positive outcome from the audience who's watching it. In comedy, it's very much kind of pass-fail. Like, you might have good intentions, but if you go out there and you just don't hit it for them, like, they don't give you credit points for going up there. And so
You're just considered not funny.
Because finishing a wrestling match, also maybe because it was my first like love in my heart. Finishing a wrestling match and expending that kind of energy for a crowd and kind of coming out of it feeling like you've been through something, versus coming off of a comedy set and you're just either excited you did good or you're down you did bad. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's just not the same expenditure to me. Like, it's not the same feeling. Like, I'm always happy when I do good. And it's exciting in both to feel like whatever you've produced or included yourself in has brought happiness or joy or entertainment. Because wrestling, there's so much more of a gambit of emotions that you want from your audience. But the hardest thing, even in wrestling and comedy, the hardest thing is to make people like you. Like, it's so much harder to find John Cena than it is to find the bad guy. Because, look at him, one of the most over people, in a few decades, and half the room hated him every time. And that was still like, everybody was like, yeah, but that's enough. Half of a 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 seat arena is good enough.
Right. And I can't help but mention, like, my favorite line by far is when he was against, I believe it was AJ Styles, and he was like, half this room's chanting, well, let's go Cena. Half this room is chanting, Cena sucks. Ain't nobody chanting for AJ Styles. So it's one of those things where he's like, guess what? He gets people to love him and hate him. You can't mess with that.
And it works like that in almost every form of entertainment. When you take a look at like the movie Almost Famous, about that band, and it's like the guitar player just has it. Whatever it is, he can play good, but he also has that personality that even though the lead singer can do his job, everybody's drawn to that guy. And he's not even trying to make it happen beyond just being himself. So it's like, that is a weird mystery of charisma, that like guys who don't maybe have the best physical attributes can still go out there and make the world turn on a dime. Like, whereas AJ Styles had to be the best physical competitor in the world for a long time to get his flowers. Like, it wasn't just, oh, look, AJ did the spiral tap 3 times on TNA 20 years ago, and it was awesome, so he's over now. Like, no, he had to do all kinds of stuff like that, and then finally make it to the WWE, and finally make it to John Cena, who was considered the generational guy at the time. And he could have outclassed him in the ring for days, but we go back and watch those promos more than we go back and watch those matches.
Exactly. See, I feel like the word here is it factor. It's hard to explain. You can't really make it other than you just say he has it. So that's really cool, though. And I wanted to add, since I guess for the uninitiated, and I guess I wanted to throw it actually because we had somebody in the comments section that mentioned this, and I think that it's a pretty good, we can go off of this. But Jackson, wants to wonder, why did you want to have a wrestling company? And, I know it's kind of a bit of a softball question, but as somebody who, potentially wants to have his own promotion in the future, I want to wrestle, but I want to understand every facet of wrestling. What really kind of made you think, what, I've done wrestling, I've become a world champion, and now I want to be a promoter. And I guess to add on top of that, what are some of the difficulties to being a promoter? Because, I know it's not an exact science, and also it's not exactly the same as wrestling itself. So,
Um, okay, well, the easy one is the first one. So I wanted to be a wrestling promoter because, um, I before COVID, I would say I was a lot more active in the amount of matches that I was taking. And when COVID happened, it was the longest break, and at the time, I think 16, 17 years I had ever taken. Um, thank you, God and wrestling, that all of my major injuries have been like skin lacerations or like muscle tears, but nothing big, like nothing I could heal myself. Um, but it was seeing going to Elite and just going to or when I was wrestling for Voltage in places where like the guys could gather wherever we were wrestling after the show. It was like, here's this community that kind of was taken away from all of us, and we're all getting it back a piece at a time. But I was just like, I don't know how much time I've got left in the ring. I don't feel old or done yet, but I know I took it back a notch because of that break. But I was just like, this is still possible. We can still create this community for people. And there's some leagues down here with good guys in it. And everybody, for the first time, I think in a while, is kind of somewhat on the same page with each other. Like, there was back early on in the early times for me when I started at the House of Pain under John Rambo in those first 5 years. It seemed like a lot of everybody working against each other out in the open, actively were working against each other. And now, because we've all been so integrated over the years, that it was like everybody Voltage, when Mike Raddick started that company, it was like we had all seen him at other places over the years, or ring announce here, or wrestled back in the day with me, or when ATCW and Chucky Manson picked that up and ran with it. It was like, oh, well, I've wrestled with you at the House of Pain, and now I come here to do this, and now years later you're running that company, and I can come there, like, or LT when he was WDWA, and then I think, believe it now, it's Gavin Jackson. Like, I've been in the ring with these guys, or I've been in a room with them where we've all talked business, just trying to figure out the territory for fun, like you would do, or just to see what it looked like. And to see around here that we have this community of guys, and sadly, when the school for WDWA kind of got set aside for a minute, but the league didn't, I was like, okay, if I can get something started here and get some momentum under it, then maybe we can get a centralized school again, where we can feed new talent into all these places and keep the tradition of wrestling in this area like going. And Martinsburg is a notoriously hard town because it's had so many different looks from so many different companies over the years. But I can say firmly with where I'm sitting, like, my goal is not to work against anyone else. I think it's cool that everybody has access to, like, there's a lot of the similar pool just because of geographically who can get here and who can be here. But also each guy in each league has his own connection to a couple of different guys that are just a little bit different, that make everybody a little bit special. And to have that, you see who the core people are around you who are really good, because everybody's going to ask for them, or crowds are going to want to see them. It's one of the reasons that I'm bringing ISP back to Martinsburg, is because coming back from COVID, I had a 3 series of matches with him. And I don't know if I was thinking about hanging it up before that, or maybe I wondered if that big break had made me take a step back in some way. But after having a series of matches with that guy, I was like, I'm going to go another 5, another 10 years. Like, I just, in my head was wrong, but actually getting into it with somebody and banging around with somebody who could just go and was a great utility guy. Like, I think he's one of the best in the area, and I'm bringing him back in the kickoff match of Apex because people in Martinsburg wanted to see him. I'm not going to make him wait halfway or all the way through the night. They're going to get him right out of the gate against Mason Walls, like, and we're going to kick this thing off hard. Mason Walls claims to be self-built, and that he's always working on things. I've been in the ring and tagged against him. I've been one-on-one against ISP. They both were able to hold their own, or at least hang with me for as long as anybody needs to. And I'm just excited for my chance to kind of join the Tumblr of wrestling culture around here. Like, at one point, I was fortunate enough. It was the summer. I'm a Bulls fan. I had a great time when I was a kid watching Michael Jordan with my dad and my sister. And the three-peat thing was like a cool thing around my household. And then they repeated it. And a few years back, I had a summer where I did something like that, where I won. I was the EWA heavyweight champion. I was the ATCW heavyweight champion. And I was the EPPW heavyweight champion. And EWA and I believe ATCW wanted me to defend on the same day. And I had said yes, EWA first, because it was part of a calendar they had given me. And so ATCW was respectfully just like, our bylaws say that we have to have it defended. And I was just like, that's okay. I'll give it back to the people. And then I turned around and came to WDWA. And in my first 3 or 4 shows, I won their title. And so for a while, for me, I was like, if you come on these 2 stretches of highway where 70 and 81 meet, and you're into wrestling and you think that you can hang, you're eventually going to find me, or I'm going to find you, because that was my stretch of highway. And I loved that feeling. And then guys that I was wrestling with at other leagues that saw that I did it were just people that I mentored or people that I was talking to. I just saw the chase in them to be like, well, if he did it, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to do something like it. And that's where Tomahawk came in, was that I watched him come into his own. And the tag team, the Dark Horses, was a great team, especially if you know their history at EWA. They did a lot of stuff there and had some cool matches as a team. And when they broke up, Tomahawk came into this new persona of the Shepherd. And I've watched what he's been able to do with it. I've watched how he has been able to grow in it. I think he's out of his damn mind, but I think it works. I don't think he's ever going to get me to buy into the message, but I mean, I guess that all is determined by what he does. And so I put him in there with the sharpest blade, Chris Slade, because I was like, I've never seen that guy have to do a lot of talking to get everybody to talk about him when the night was over. So I don't know if Tomahawk's going to be able to get into his head. I don't know if Tomahawk's going to be able to throw him around enough to slow him down. But I was like, I'm going to put the Shepherd in there against a lightning bolt, against a bottle rocket, against a missile. Like, I just remember. I remember when Cory was 3 promotion champion. Yes, Susie, I was. It was a really good time. And
Susie was there, man. She remembers
the good stuff and the good time, man. That was a really good time for me. And I think I still have. I have plenty left in the tank, but when I got into this, I decided that I've seen people try to do both jobs of wrestling and promoting. And I was just like, I want to get the one I don't know as well right before I put myself back in a position to do both. And so I picked matches that I thought put matches together with who could I get my hands on, who would be available. The area around here has a lot of good wrestling. When I looked at the week prior to me or the week after me or 2 weeks before me, I was like, there's something going on every weekend you could go to. So I'm trying to stand out. I went to the biggest building in town I could find. I had wrestled in there for 1 or 2 other leagues over the years, but nobody's ever picked it up regular. And if we could take a big swing and get the local wrestling community and families out to come see this, I just think God love everybody else. But the whole point of getting into wrestling at all is that there is a competition involved in every aspect. And I think if I can get a handle on it, that I might be able to make a more fun event than the people I'm up against. And I hope they feel that way too, because it means wrestling is better for everyone.
It's friendly competition, I think, is the best way to describe it. You know, it's like you're not rooting for their downfall. You're just like, yeah, but I think I could be better at this.
If we all think that way, the fans are the ones who win. The guys wrestling are the ones who win, because it means more opportunities and more chances for the fans to see us. Bigger venues for everybody. I mean, it could bring ticket prices down because we have more seats. It means you can go to more back-to-back stuff. We all have this loose hope, I think, or maybe I do. It may be overly utopian, but it's like, if all these leagues stand the test of time, now we have this like gauntlet for a competitor to come by and try to do the same thing that I did, that I didn't even know I was doing at the time. But like, can you come through this area if we're all working kind of not together, but not against each other, and be like, okay, I came to your league and wrestled and did the best you had, or did your series of guys that are special, and I managed to make the championship. Like, now I want to go see if I can do it at this guy and at this guy and at this guy. And if you find somebody that has that kind of charisma or that kind of talent or that connects with people or does the opposite, disconnects people, and they just can't wait to see you get beat up, like, now you have a real attraction and a real champion that's like, hey, when this guy goes somewhere, people are going to go see him. And I mean, the goal is that I hope all of us are trying to find a way to create that guy within our companies or at least within our community. To be like, okay, maybe one guy gets hot and he gets to pick where he works and gets to pick, I mean, kind of who he wants to work for and how. But it takes the group to make that guy. And whether it's the group of us putting him out there or the group of you guys coming to watch him to decide, like, oh, you've got the charisma or you've got the moves or you've got the it factor.
Yeah, you were talking about when you held the different titles. I actually have, still have actually, a picture where we were at EPPW, and it's you, me, and you're holding, or actually I think I'm holding the EPPW Heavyweight Championship. And then it was like the next night or the next show, picture of you, me, and the WDWA Heavyweight Championship. So yeah, I definitely remember that time as well when you were holding multiple championships at one time.
And I got because of that time period, when you're doing something like that, you get to wrestle some of the best people because you're trading championships or you're trying to hang on to one. And so the guy you get it from or the guy who tries to come get it from you is normally somebody of a caliber that you may not get to see them or do a lot of repetitions with them because they're wrestling in those top-notch matches. So unless you go in a series with them for that title, that may be the only time that you get your hands on them. For example, now he's going by Sebastian, but he was Anthony Athens. But I beat him for the ATCW Heavyweight Championship, and I was glad to get in the ring with him because I've seen him progress since then and seen him change to Sebastian. And it's like, I don't know when the next time I'm going to get my hands on that guy, but we have that story. Or Shane Malice. I wrestled Shane Malice probably his second year in at a carnival. And then years later, we come back and it's me and him for the WDWA Heavyweight Championship. Like, and it was like, I got to see the progression from that guy that was 2 years in when I was 10 to now he's 10 plus years in and I'm closing in on 20. Or DeMarcus Kane, who came when I originally started training, I think like a year or two in, he came to train at the House of Pain before he crossed over to a bunch of different schools that eventually became MCW. But he came back for that very last show at EPPW. And it was like, now I got to see what you're like 10 years later when we're not under the same building learning the same things. Like, what did you learn? Who did you become? Now you're coming back here to take my title. Like, let's see if you got it in you. Like, and it's those kind of internal stories that, like, you want to put something out that's exciting for everyone else. It makes it so much easier to do that when you have those kind of moments that make it exciting for you, where it's like, hey, we've had this large gap of time. I'm familiar with you. I'm ready to go out there and lay it all down. What did you learn in that time? And are you underestimating what I learned in that time? And what new chemistry is going to be made? Because to me, and I was actually, this will lead into a whole nother thing, but to me, wrestling is a martial art. One of my training and things that I have learned, you can use to protect yourself in a lot of different ways. To me, I think the goal is different. I think if you box or do MMA, they make you take like a mandatory medical leave after fights. And in wrestling, we don't do that. But to me, it's because their goal is training to end a fight as quickly and efficiently as possible. Our goal is to extend one as far as humanly possible. Like, the skill you're developing, more or less, is durability. And that's why the pinnacle for a singles competition is an Ironman match. It's 60 minutes, everything you got. And so when people like talk to me or they come to me and they're like, well, wrestling is, and everybody hates the word fake, but the one I come after more is, oh, but you guys know who's going to win. And I'm like, that's not always true. Like, that's not always the case. I've been in several situations where somebody has walked up and been like, you two or you four or however many guys are in the match, you have 15 minutes, and then walk away. Because they expect that you're professional, and they expect that you're creative, and that you're artists, and that if they don't come to you and say, we need this to happen so that A, B, and C happens, then you have to go out there and figure out a way to make A happen so that the crowd and the boss wants B and C. And so when people go out and they see wrestling and they say that looks weird or it doesn't look like it's all together, my idea in my head is like, imagine a black belt in any discipline trying to fight an orange belt, but they have to keep it to a certain time limit. Like he can't just go out there and beat him up. He has to hang on for 10 minutes. And so you might see some gaps where things look choppy or weird. But when you get two people that are at a high enough level, and I think it's one of the reasons that people still stick with wrestling, especially because once Vince McMahon in the 90s had to say that it was a show versus a sport, but then you fast forward till now and look who they've hired since then. They've hired top-level fighters and D1 athletes and Olympians and power lifters, and they've hired some of the actual most dangerous people like to come and learn this art form. And so it's like, okay, you could say that it's predetermined, or you could say a lot of stuff, but when Brock Lesnar gets in there and starts chucking people around, there's no more real life situation than trying to save your spine in that moment. Like I was like, or when Ronda Rousey got in there, and it was lucky that Alexa Bliss was like double jointed. Or even if they knew it, like it wasn't like you didn't see her out there being a little rougher in certain ways than different people. And so to me, it's like that's the martial art you're training for, is to go out there and survive no matter who it is. And I can't say it for everybody, but I know that right now in my career, my best opponent of all time is TJ Sykes. And when we got to a certain point out there because we went back and forth in Virginia and in West Virginia and in Maryland, and I can tell you in the highest level of matches that we have, it wasn't about what you knew in advance. It was about your training. It was about, did you train for certain sequences? Did you train for certain events? Like when certain things happen, does your brain give you something to do about it? Because we're not talking. Like there's no, we wrote it down. There's no, here's a sequence. There's nope. We just hit a certain groove where we were just clashing like you're watching Dragon Ball Z or anime. Like we know from having a couple matches how far we can be pushed. And then we know from being around each other that we're going to try to push that envelope every time. And that's, man, when you get, the high level professionals, if you, Daniel Bryan or Will Ospreay, or just true high level. Yeah, they can put up a character, but they're not character based guys. They're get in there and clash kind of guys. And when you get guys like that live and breathe that style, there's not a lot of conversation. They really are catch wrestling. They really just can go that fast and make those connections at that level, at that speed that you're looking at it and you're like, I think he took his head off. And it's fun for me now after all the stuff that I've gotten to watch, or the difference between how I see wrestling now versus before I got into it, is when people can give you those moments. Like something like that, where one of those matches where they're really expending of all the life energy they've got. Or you see a story moment like Cody and Roman, where they're like, they've built this as characters to such a fever pitch that do I need Cody to be Will Ospreay? No, I don't. I just need him to be the Cody I need in that moment for the payoff I want emotionally. And if he can do that to a high level as a character, it's even better. And so there's so many ways in wrestling. That's another thing that makes wrestling special, is that in comedy, everybody can have different styles, or in acting, you can have a character that people like Ryan Reynolds is Ryan Reynolds in most of his movies. Nobody cares. That's what they want. And to me, wrestling is so special because our heroes, we think about it like Hogan and Cena are similar, or in some aspects, or the big heavyweight guy champion. But it's for every one of those, you've got an HBK or Rob Van Dam or Rey Mysterio, or somebody that's different in some way that the population as a whole just grabs onto that person and is just maybe I can't. As a kid, I couldn't identify with those guys. I was 200 pounds in middle school. But I was just oh, Rey Mysterio or Rob Van Dam or Monday Night Nitro, versus Raw. And if you watched one, you were missing something on the other. So you constantly had to make a choice. And it made it exciting. Like, so I saw you guys earlier talking about WWE picking up a pay-per-view on AEW same slot. And I'm like, I get the competition and kind of firing a shot across the bow. But also, I remember in the Monday Night Wars being like a remote in my hand trying to, like, not just I like this program and maybe I'll click over to check in. It was literally minute to minute, segment to segment. This is good here. This is good here. This is good here. This is good here. And figuring out what you liked as a fan and what you were going to watch. Because it was just like, okay, I love the cruiserweights in WCW when you're seeing Juventud Guerrera, or you're seeing, like, even La Parka was a good, like, character, which was weird. He was the best, like, luchador character. He wasn't doing the same backflips or the same sequences as all the other luchadors, but he was the one that, because of the chair and the dance and whatever else you wanted to add on to him, had his own little niche that they were just like, yeah, we can put you out there to do 3 or 4 different things.
Well, and I want to add too that La Parka is a fantastic wrestler too. Like that's how over he was with just that, like, alone, that it's like I've watched matches and I'm like, oh crap, who knew this guy could go? Like, so I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's like that's his role, you know?
And I really dug that a lot, because it was like, I was a big Hulk Hogan fan. And when NWO became cool, like, I hated it when it first started. And then all of a sudden it became cool. But it was like right at the time that they figured out how to be like adult biker, black beard, like cool. D-Generation X started up and got rocking. And it was just like, oh, I'm 13 or I'm 14. Like, yeah, it'd be cool to have a motorcycle and cool chicks on my arm. But it seems like a lot more fun to have a cannon that I'm treating like my dick. Like, it was just that mindset. And I think that's the interesting thing about the cycles of wrestling, is that, like, if you were a little kid or an early teenager when John Cena was doing Thugonomics, you were like, I love all this. This is I'm going to go to school and say this.
So you mean when I was a 13-year-old in school?
And
Because
so,
that's exactly what happened to me. That's why I'm a Cena stan.
and so but you hang on to that, and then you hit this weird age where, like, 17, 18, 19, maybe it's not as cool to you, but he's still doing it a little bit. And then you hit your early to mid 20s and he goes kind of into that Marine kick. And if you already have a kid or went the family route, like, you kind of like the stability of that, hey, well, I remember him and he was funny, but I don't want my kid to see him like that. But now that he's doing this, like, yes, kid, hustle, loyalty, respect. He was the Marine. Like, this is, get back into it. All right. And then your kid starts to grow up and they're just like, this sucks. I want somebody doing something cool. Like, yeah, John Cena. Okay, cool. But I need somebody to be the badass. I need somebody to be like, and so another character comes up behind him. I mean, you could pick half a dozen. It wouldn't matter. But he was steady because he figured out that he was just like, I need to win you as a kid. I need to win you as a kid. And then when you grow up, you help me win your kid when I'm better, like when I'm a better role model. But I mean, you saw a lot of like that, like The Rock, when he was first, I mean, before he was so popular as a bad guy that they didn't have a choice. That they were just like, the second we do this, everybody's on board and we know it already. Or The Undertaker. He was so bad and had gone through everybody so much, he became the punishment for being bad because there wasn't any more mountains for him to climb on the good side of things. They were like, all right, well, your character is that you don't really care about who it is, just as long as you're punishing somebody. And so then you become like, well, now you're the punishment for bad guys. So by default, they're going to like you because you're the immovable object. So they assume the guy they hate's going to get his ass kicked. Like, and I just, all those dynamics make it all so much fun. And I hope that when Apex comes around and I really kind of get a form on it, because this first show is just kind of, I mean, pass or fail. Like, I like the matches. I think Reggie Collins and King Kalua as the main event is going to give you good, if you showed up wanting to be entertained, I think that match by itself, when you sit and watch it, you can sit back and smile and be like, that was a good time. That was fun to watch. Like, the tag match are two perennial tag teams around here. The Faculty and the Radical Stars I mean, have interwoven like their tracks. I don't know how many times that they've matched up. This could be the first time, but I know that both of those teams, since I first saw them, because I was around when almost everybody involved in that match started training in one way or another, and to see how far that they've come and how they've defined themselves. I mean, Jacob Edwin is a pain in the ass, but he's almost as smart as he thinks he is. And that's where he gets himself into trouble. But when you hear the Radical Stars, when that song comes on, the first time I saw it, I gritted my teeth that I popped for it, but I popped for it. That they're coming out to Aqua, and they're Happy People by Aqua, like the Barbie song people. And when I heard the beginning of it, I thought it was cheesy. I was just like, there's no way. I was like, what are you guys doing? And I hadn't been around because they had been, I think it was pre-COVID NWL, maybe the first year that they kind of started running it in West Virginia again. But I hadn't been at that show, and they had run a couple, and I finally showed up to work on that show, and I heard that song and peeked around. It was just like, what are you guys doing to yourselves? Like, you're supposed to be the good guys. You're supposed to be cool. And man, I was wrong. When they walked out, people were standing up with their hands moving. They were clapping like it was an entirely different energy. And so I'm looking to see what happens when those two energies clash this Saturday night. Like, if they can keep that momentum and keep that happy boys and girls. Yep, that's the song. That's what it's all about, is like, can Edwin come out and outsmart these guys who are going to bring the energy? I mean, Coach is no slouch either, but when I saw it in my head and wrote it down on paper, I was just like, this is going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be worth buying a ticket to come see.
And I think you've hit a lot of the matches that have been advertised. There's only 2 I think we haven't hit so far. So, I
mean, one of those 2 is is right there. Is the Force versus the Object. I myself got a chance to tangle it up with the Mountain, Ivan Ali, and when I called him up for the show, I told him outright, I was like, I need a physical specimen, and you are 6'7". Like, I was just like, I'm gonna find somebody. I was like, do you want to come run him over or not? And then when I was asking around to different guys, I don't know if it's that he spent too much time in the holler or too much time with the shine, but Bootleg Dave stood up and just said, me today, tomorrow, and the next day. And so I was like, I don't know if he's dulled his senses or maybe they're just right on and he's crazy, but we're going to see if he can walk in the door and take down the Mountain at Apex. I mean, it wasn't a surprise that with Apex, I called in that guy, like, not only because I had tangled up with him, but because he's called the Mountain. And I was just like, okay, like, I don't assume he's going to take everybody down. I was like, but I assume he's going to be a challenge for everybody. So if Bootleg Dave gets it done night 1, I don't know what I'm going to do from there, but that's why I called in somebody crazy. Like, I would just like, grab your XXX moonshine bottle, get on a plane, and let's see what you can do against the mountain of a man for Apex in the Mountaineer State. Like,
yeah, and I'm used to seeing him as Big Money Inc., you know, so it'll be interesting to see him going in a singles match. So.
When I first met him when I was wrestling for GXW, he was in some tag stuff down there too, and was just always the sledgehammer of the group. And then I want to say I got a chance last year, the year before, on Cinco de Mayo to go one-on-one with him for 3CW. Wait, C3W, that's it. And he gave me a handful and more. And I mean, a lot of these guys, one way or another, ISP gave me a handful and gave me a run for my money. Mason Walls, I was in a tag match against him and his partner at the time, and they got over on my partner, and I've dropped one to him. Reggie Collins is a machine. And I can say this openly and plainly. I don't know if I include myself in this, but only to save my own pride. He is the hardest working, trying to get it done, trying to get seen person that I've seen maybe ever. I mean, from my perspective, I don't know other places and other people, but I know that when I got into wrestling, there was no thought of it not working. This was what I was gonna do if I had to put other jobs aside. If I went regional or national, or it wasn't gonna matter. It was going to be a part of my great life's work. And when I look at how far he's come since I've seen him as a teenager until now, he's putting in the hours and putting in the work. So if you're buying a ticket to see him anywhere, he's coming to give it to you. And so I put him in there against Kalua because I was like, the only thing I think that could put a good test to that hard work is somebody who's got a wealth of experience and who also still works hard. I mean, Kalua, for being around a good while, still keeps himself in shape, can still, swing with the heavy hitters. And so I put him as a roadblock to see how much Collins wants it. I was like, and then I put him in the main event because how can I raise the stakes on these two guys even further? Just make everybody watch. And then the final match, and the one that I haven't touched on yet, is the Night 1 Battle Royal. And right now, as an exclusive on this show, I haven't announced it yet. I was thinking about announcing it the night of, but why not do it right now? You can only win the Night 1 Battle Royal once, and I wanted to commemorate that with something that the audience would enjoy and something to give the wrestlers a reason to get in there and really struggle to pick up that win. So the winner of the Night 1 Battle Royal will get to choose his opponent for the following show or the next show that he is available to participate on. So if Night 1 goes right and we can put the next date in the books, then I go to that guy and I'm like, who do you want to fight? You can't make this one? Okay, if we get to the next one and you're available that night, who do you want to fight? And something I had never heard of before. I mean, I've heard of grudge matches where a guy, if he wins, he gets to fight a specific guy or a specific thing comes back together. I was like, this one's open season. I was like, if I can get my hands on him or we can afford him, if you want him, if you win the Night 1 Battle Royal, we're going to come get him. Because what better to raise the stakes than somebody who wins the Battle Royal than to tell them the next time, like, that there's something to reach up for. There's an apex to climb to.
Wow, that's awesome. And definitely looking forward to that. That is just going to add a whole nother element to that match. So
you get the exclusive right here on the Wrestle Talk podcast.
Definitely, looking forward to that match. Looking forward to seeing who the 10 men are that'll be in that match. It's going to be a fun night. And,
I mean, it's added a few more. I don't even know if we're going to stop at 10 the way that people are talking about it. I know that just the other day we added in DB Rivera, who is a big rising star up at Elite. If you watch their Throwdown Thursdays, I mean, he's a fairly newer guy to their roster, but in the months that he's been there, he has really taken off and joined like the next level. I mean, there's some good guys there starting out, and there's a pack there that's brewing now because they have some students that have been coming together. But this guy on his own has just found out a way to break out a little bit. And I put the word out and he answered the call. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can take down some of the members that are on the card, because I've got guys on the regular roster that have talked to me about wanting to get the piece of that call in my win column. So I was like, you never know. The Mountain might come back and just topple everybody all over again. Or the teams might be able to come back and work together. Or guys that haven't been able to get in the ring are going to come in and team up against guys who were on the show earlier. Like, I've been a victim to that my entire Battle Royal career, that I've been eliminated by a group of 5 or more people more times than I've been eliminated by 1 or 2. Like, I don't normally get to make it down to the last few. The group at one point realizes it's time to go. And I mean, I do my best. I've struggled against a bunch, but when they start grouping up with the entire ring at once, there's not much you're going to be able to do. So I'm looking forward to the fact that I'm not in it to see if that happens to somebody else, whether it be the Mountain, because right now I believe he's the biggest competitor in it, or somebody else that surprises me later. Something I can tell you that is fun about promoting or running a show or being on this side of the fence is I don't know how it's all going to play out. I know what I put together. Like, I have an idea of what I'm hoping the matches bring, but until you're really there in the moment, figuring out what energy resonates with the crowd or who they like or what they think is going to happen, like, it's exciting to be on this side of it, because everything comes down to the night of. Like, I can do the podcast and I can put posters up and I can call guys, but it's the energy of the show itself. Once the first bell rings, my job, I mean, It's not done, but everything is out of my hands after that. And it's exciting because I really get to go back to a place where I'm watching the show just as much for entertainment value as like, oh, I might wrestle that guy, so let me pick this apart, or I'm on the card, so like, what are they doing so I can pick and choose my strategy for later. Like this time I literally just get to be like, yes, let's start the movie. Like the previews are over, let's start the show.
Well, and you talk about picking stuff apart and picking your opponents and stuff. You know, we have a segment here on Wrestle Talk Podcast that we do every week that is called the world famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. And last week during the challenge, our very own Gabriel Arsene got swept.
Ooh.
And he is looking for redemption. And he said, I want another shot. I can't take this loss. I am going to take Cory Bush in the Game Show Challenge.
So to quote another wrestler who's very famous, you're not getting redemption. You're not getting redemption, Jack. You're getting your ass kicked.
Ooh.
So saith The Rock one time.
So we're going to go ahead and bring our co-host Luke Roberts back in here, and he is going to be hosting our Game Show Challenge.
Well, first of all, Cory, thank you for coming on the program and proving once again that Gabriel Arsene is going to have to work extremely hard to make up for his wonderful effort last week. Also, as reminders, I'm looking here on the graphic, make it a point for if you've enjoyed tonight's video, Apex Pro Wrestling League this Saturday night, 7 p.m. Berkeley 2000 Rec Center in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Make it a point to get your tickets. It's going to be a great night of pro wrestling action, and we're going to have a great night of pro wrestling action right now. You see the graphic on the screen, and in a few seconds, you're going to see some tears being shed because I'm going to level with you. I think Gabriel Arsene is going to get swept 2 weeks in a row. But you know what? We've already got the competitors. Let's not waste any time. Let's take care of business. Hardcore Hoss, if you hit the game show music, we'll get the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge underway right now. And that's not the Game Show Challenge music. It's the technology at its best. Let's go ahead and hit the world-famous Game Show Challenge right here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Let's hit that intro music. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's installment of the world-famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Tonight's contest is scheduled for the best 2 out of 3 falls. It features Apex Wrestling's own Cory Bush taking on the Wrestle Talk Podcast Gabriel Arsene. Now, gentlemen, in a few moments, I'm going to give you information about 3 professional wrestlers that all revolve around a particular wrestling topic. When you think you know the answer, shout out your answer. The first one to win 2 out of 3 falls will win tonight's Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Now, earlier on this evening, we talked about wrestling taking place internationally. So what I figured tonight is to have the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge being international title changes. That being title changes that happened outside of the United States. When you think you know the answer, shout out your answer. The first one to win 2 out of 3 falls will win tonight's Game Show Challenge. Cory, are you ready for question number 1?
Let's go.
Gabriel Arsene, are you ready for question number 1?
I'm ready to win. All right. I need to redeem myself. Let's do it.
Well, let's see how this is all going to turn out. Hardcore Hoss, I know you got the tape machine rolling just in the event that we need to break a tie. Here we go with question number 1. This individual is known for winning the Royal Rumble. He is also known for defeating Samoa Joe to win the NXT Championship. That is correct. The first fall goes to Gabriel Arsene. It was Shinsuke Nakamura defeating Samoa Joe in Osaka, Japan. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, it's one fall for our scene, no falls for Cory Bush. Cory, are you ready for round number 2?
Yeah. Yep. Let's go.
All right. Gabriel, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All righty. Question number 2. This international title change is often spoken about, not for the competitors involved, but the launch of the career of the person who won the Intercontinental Championship in Milan, Italy. Name him.
Morella.
Cory Bush fires back with round number 2. Fall 2 goes to Cory Bush, as they would say, the Milan Miracle, and Santino Marella winning the Intercontinental Championship. At this point, we are one fall apiece. Gabriel, are you ready for the third and final fall?
Just want to clarify, it's not a sweep this time. That's the feather in my hat right now, but yes, I'm ready.
That's loser talk.
All right, well, gentlemen, here we go. It's time for the third and final fall. We will return back to NXT for our third and final wrestler. This individual won the NXT. Ladies and gentlemen, your winner of tonight's Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge in the third and final fall, the one, the only, Gabriel Arsene Hardcore Haas. Can you hit the victory music?
Redemption! Oh, I needed that. As soon as
Well, I can tell you right now. Yeah, I'm going to say this right now.
Answer before the question was done.
I think on both of them he did. And just to let you know, Arsene, we don't need any more dancing this evening. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn things back over before we get too much farther along. Cory, first of all, for anybody that wants to catch the Apex Pro Wrestling League in Martinsburg, West Virginia this coming weekend, or to catch any of their great events, can you give us a little bit of a quick rundown as to how they can catch the events of this Saturday night?
I mean, our main push has been on Facebook, but we have reservations that'll be being taken. You can find that on Facebook, or if you're on here and you're seeing this, look me up. You can message me directly. Anytime you see that poster, there's a QR code at the bottom that goes right to our ticketing thing. You can go in there, do it online. It's fast, easy, and get it done. We also have in paper tickets being sold at, it is called, it's going to kill me that I can't remember, but it's the Game Shop downtown in Martinsburg. They have my information there as well. Pretty much just, if you haven't seen it online or you don't go through the QR code, this Saturday night at the Berkeley 2000 Center. It's the building behind the municipal pool in Martinsburg. It's a big old community building. There's plenty of parking. All your food and drinks that you buy go back to the rec center, so it's a good cause for the kids in the area. And we're just trying to build something good over here at Apex in Martinsburg to bring good wrestling back to the town, back to the people, and just keep it alive for the next generation.
And I got to tell you right now, from top to bottom, it's going to be a great night of professional wrestling. And I got to level with you. When you talked about the Battle Royal, that was my claim to fame. I made it a point. I lasted a pretty good amount of time in Battle Royals. And I'll tell you, those are always exciting matchups to have. And I mean, again, where else can you go? Not only can you buy tickets at the venue, you can buy tickets at independent outlets, but you can also scan the QR code and you can get tickets for this event right there from the QR code, most people on your smart device. It can't be any simpler than that.
It is a pleasure and a privilege to be in a position that I can put on a show and that I've made enough connections through wrestling to get good guys in for a good building, that if you come buy a ticket to see Apex, I've done everything I can, and we at Apex have done everything as a group to try to make it an occasion that if you come and buy a ticket with us and spend your time, we're going to make it a good time. And we're going to try to put something out there that if you decide to come back, it's money well spent next time too.
Very true, Corey. Very true. And I'm going to tell you right now, from top to bottom, this card looks to be an outstanding card. I'm going to let you know. If you're in the Martinsburg, West Virginia area, and you can make it a point to check out Apex Wrestling this weekend, you're not going to have to worry about it. You're going to want to find out a way to buy your tickets right then and there at the door, because this is going to be a great night of professional wrestling. I know Hardcore Haas has talked about it. Our broadcast colleague Nightmare Jones has talked about the events that are going on this weekend, and I know for a fact that if you've enjoyed this interview, definitely need to check them out this weekend. Hardcore Haas, I'm going to turn things back over to you here. We got Susie Haas saying she's going to be there. Tell your friends, tell your family, Apex Wrestling this Saturday night in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Hardcore Haas, back to you.
All right. Corey, want to thank you for being here tonight. You know, it's always a pleasure. And, you know, it's been a while since I've actually gotten to see you. So it's great to really be able to sit down and chat with you. And before we get out of here, did you want to run through that card one more time?
Absolutely. I would love to. This Saturday night, Apex Wrestling is coming to Martinsburg, West Virginia. I've got 5 action-packed matches, plus to top it all off, a night 1 battle royal where the winner gets to pick his opponent the next time he's in the house. We're kicking it off with ISP, Israel Sharif Fakour, with Dr. Douglas Crane, which was against my liking, but it was part of the contract, against Self-Made Mason Walls. They're going to kick this thing off, and it's going to be a drag strip. They're going to go 100 miles an hour from the start. You're going to get to see fireworks from minute 1 at Apex. Then, coming after that, you're going to get to see the Mountain Ivan Ali take on Bootleg Dave. 2 opposite personalities. Ivan is business all day long. He is about his money, and he's about being the apex in Apex that everyone else is trying to climb. His first challenge is going to be Bootleg Dave, the only guy I could find who either had it all there or had it all gone, and that's why he was willing to take this on to see if he could take down the Mountain in his first night at Apex and his first night in the area, I believe. That, our main event, we're doing it in the first half. I'm giving you the published main event in the first half. Reggie Collins versus King Kalua. The upstart kid, the machine, the leader of the Resolution, the slice of nice, versus the seasoned veteran. Coming out to Dancing Queen. I don't know if he does that to get into people's heads or to hype up his own, but it is a spectacle to see. I hear tell Dr. Douglas Crane will also be out there with him, holding down the fort, making sure that all that nice, colorful ring wear doesn't get stepped on or trampled on by his opponent or the fans. Then we're going to hit an intermission where you all can hit the concession stand, get your popcorn and soda pop hot dogs, give something back to the rec center so that the kids can have swim classes and all kinds of other good things they do there. Then in the second half, we're coming back with your feature match. And this is, this could be, I put it as the feature match. I could see it as a main event other places. It could be the sleeper of the whole show. Chris Slade, the Sharpest Blade, versus the Shepherd Tomahawk. I've seen what Tomahawk has been able to talk others into doing. I've seen what Tomahawk has been able to do to other wrestlers that have been in other leagues that we've been around. I brought him in to see if he could have that same kind of power over a rocket ship, a highlight reel. I mean, a guy you got to see to believe in Chris Slade. I'm excited about that matchup, and we follow it up with our only tag match of the evening. 2 regional tag teams that have played the game around here for a while. I know that they've looked each other up and down. I do not know if this is the first time they've ever locked up, but it is the first time that they will ever lock up on the first night at Apex. I'm talking about the faculty, Jacob Edwin and the coach versus the Radical Stars, LA Star and Willie Radical. These guys have put some time in. They each know their partner really well, and I think that's going to translate to a good tag team match with a lot of action that you're going to enjoy. And then we close the whole thing out with the night 1 battle royal. You can only win the end of night 1 one time. So as a privilege and a gift to the guy who comes out on top of that, he will be able to pick his opponent for the next show or the next show that he is available for, which means there's any combination of moments that could happen or surprises that could be seen. I don't know who they're going to pick. And that was one of the things I liked about it was I wanted to leave you with something to see at the end that could lead you into the next show, but also make you ask yourself a lot of questions about who you wanted to see, who that guy might want to wrestle. Because if you don't leave them with a little bit of mystery, you can't solve it when they come back. So I'm excited for it. We're 4 days away. Probably after midnight, we're closing in on it. We'll be 3 days away. Apex is coming to town. Apex is coming to Martinsburg, West Virginia. It is my pleasure and my honor to put it on for you. Everybody who's listening, if you're tuning in, I hope you come to check out the results if you can't make it. But if you can make it, if you can be there in person, come to the Berkeley 2000 Center in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Come see Apex's first show and be part of the beginning of something brand new and awesome in the wrestling community in this area. It has been a pleasure to be on the show with you guys. I look forward to it. I think, Gabriel, I think you knew that last question. I think you cheated. I think you looked at him before you got on board.
Sir.
He didn't even finish the question before you knew the answer. I still don't know what the question was, but I have been a champion before and lost championships before and came back to win them again. So at some point, I'm coming back and we're going to do this again, and I'm going to clean you. I'm going to sweep you. Like, I don't take losing lightly. So I'll take my Miracle in the Milan answer and just be proud of myself about international title changes. Who saw that coming?
What happened to that being loser talk? No, I do look forward to seeing you in the show again once again, man. It's been a pleasure. I mean, if I can just get this in before we wrap up here tonight, I have a lot to learn because I want to do. It just seems like I want to do everything in wrestling. So to see somebody like you who's been able to get in the ring and become a promoter and start your own business up like that, I mean, it's inspiring for somebody like me. I mean, we talk about it even at the beginning of the program. I am the young lion of this group, but I figure that means I have room to grow. And I think as long as I'm on the way, especially onto episode 500 with, Cory Bush, with Luke Roberts, with Hardcore Haas, with everybody in the comment section, I think we can look forward to, the next generation of wrestling, making sure we're on the right path. So
it takes love, care, passion, and commitment. So if any part of wrestling that you want to get into, the best I've ever told anybody at any school or anything like that was, I was like, you're taking on another job. You're taking, especially, all the time, but especially at the very beginning of anything, like doing my first show. Like, I've had to hit the streets more days than I did when I was hanging up posters for leagues when I started. Like, I've realized how much more intense this job is about getting people into the seats versus who are you hiring or what does the card look like or anything like that. And when I was wrestling and I first started training, it was the same thing. Like, I had to get in there as many days as I could to learn the muscle memory and to get my body prepared, because it only gets faster and heavier and harder, like the deeper you get into it with everything. So it's good to see that you're excited about it and that you have dreams for it and you're looking forward to it, because that's the first step of anything. Like, if you don't have a love or an attraction to it, it's not going to last very long.
Words to model myself after.
And ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you right now.
Did you guys have anything else to say, or were you looking like we're wrapping up here?
I'm going to tell you right now, Cory, you couldn't hit it any more on the head. Speaking from a man who's been around the professional wrestling industry as long as I have here in the St. Louis area. Heart, passion, determination, drive. I mean, I've seen wrestlers that nobody expected to be successful in the world of professional wrestling, and they have gone on to great things across the world. And all those things that you mentioned are what makes successful professional wrestling promotions. And I'm going to tell you right now, Apex Wrestling, Martinsburg, West Virginia, check them out this Saturday night. You will not be disappointed. I'm going to tell you right now, who knows, maybe somewhere down the road we might get the opportunity. I know it's halfway across the country, but maybe we could start seeing some wrestlers from Apex Wrestling coming up to the St. Louis area or coming up into the Northeast or areas like that, because again, professional wrestling brings the best in professional wrestling each and every time, regardless of whether you're in West Virginia, St. Louis, Seattle, Washington, you name it, professional wrestling's on the marquee. You need to check it out. And if you're in Martinsburg, West Virginia this Saturday night, check out Apex Wrestling. You will not be disappointed. Cory, I want to say thank you for coming on the program and being a part of the Wrestle Talk Podcast family, and we look forward to having you on real soon. And hopefully next time we can get this whole Gabriel Arsene thing taken care of, and we will actually get the right winner for tonight's matchup.
It was a pleasure, guys. I appreciate you coming up on episode 500 of keeping people engaged and talking about wrestling and real fandom and going between the companies and the wrestlers and the dirt sheets and the real lot, like just everything. Another group of people that are into it for the right reasons, that love wrestling, that want to keep this one of the last forms of real live entertainment that you can go and see in local communities all over the place, keeping it alive. And I'm a pleasure to be a part of its lineage. I hope Apex comes to bear and gives everybody as much fun during the show as I've had setting it up and figuring out all the knots that I had to tie and untie. It has been a pleasure to be with you guys, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Cory.
All right.
And
Ladies and gentlemen.
See you Saturday.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Cory Bush here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, I feel very fortunate. Even with all the hiccups and the bumps along the road tonight, tonight's interview delivered. And again, I know I've said this about 16 times, but I've had the opportunity to see some of these wrestlers in action. And if you're in Martinsburg, West Virginia this weekend, this Saturday night, you need to check out Apex Wrestling. You're not going to be disappointed. And gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, next week, we're going to have the announcement that everybody wants to hear. One of several big announcements that we're going to have in relationship to Wrestle Talk's 500th episode. I know I've said this for weeks, but the Night Owl should be back next week. And I'm going to let him, because he's the man who pays all the bills. He's the man behind the scenes. He's the one that does a lot of the scheduling. He does all these things to make sure that everything runs smoothly, just like each and every member of the Wrestle Talk Podcast team, just like each and every member of the Wrestle Talk Podcast family. Next Tuesday night, we're going to have the first of several big announcements, and I'm going to tell you right now, Wrestle Talk Podcast's 500th episode is going to be one for the memory books. And gentlemen, it was a great night. I mean, most of it was a great night. Big Daddy P, great discussion in the high spot segment. We won't talk about our scene because they'll get a little bit of an ego today. But when it comes down to it, the young lion with the old soul becoming victorious here tonight. Before we get going here this evening, gentlemen, I do think that we need to go ahead and talk about our sponsors one more time. Hardcore Hoss, I know you're going to get them up here on the screen. Our scene, since you were the winner of the game show challenge, go ahead and talk about all of our great sponsors of the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
As always, the Wrestle Talk Podcast would like to thank all of our great sponsors: Royal Mills Transportation, head by one DeJuan Mills, Nobleman's Barber Lounge in Kansas City, Missouri, ask for Pete the Barber, Kincaid Arcade at Oak Park Mall, Interstate 70 Sports Media. Be sure to check out Jeremy Karp, Little Popeye Designs, Wrestle Talk Podcast Tumblr, that's where you can pick it up, and FWWC, the world's premier wrestling group.
Well, you know something, guys? I'm going to level with you. Tomorrow night, make it a point, Interstate 70 Sports Media, episode 100 of Roundabout Sports with the maestro, Jeremy Karp. It's going to be a great show. Need a point, check them out. Thursday night, FWWC tonight. We're going to be leading in, I believe this weekend we have an event, Friday we have an event, Hoss. And then I believe we're going to be kind of rolling into the fall events that are coming up. And right now, again, you see two of the champions of the FWWC right here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Guys, I got to tell you, even with all the bumps in the road, it was a great episode. It was a learning experience. You got the hardcore champion. You got the Warriors Heart champion. You got Luke Roberts, the Hall of Famer. And you had Cory Bush along with Big Daddy P. A great night of professional wrestling talk. Make it a point, without the Wrestle Talk Podcast family, the Wrestle Talk Podcast doesn't come on the air each and every week without the sponsors as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap us up here for this week's installment of the Wrestle Talk Podcast. For myself, Hardcore Hoss, Gabriel Arsene, I'm Luke Roberts. We'll look forward to seeing you back here next week for the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Take care and see you next Tuesday night.